All right. Okay. I just wondered because
As
it
long
said
as you're
guest.
a presenter, you should have both um, the video and audio.
Hmm.
Okay, I think we should get started now. It's good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vaishali Pradhan. I'm the head of English and Education at British Council. Welcome to the second edition of the Stay at Home, Continue to Learn webinar series. These webinars are done in collaboration with NELTA and is for teachers both at primary and secondary level who are interested in their personal and professional development. We launched this series in May last year, and it was very well received by participants all across the country, and some even beyond Nepal, actually. So that made us, it gave us actually the confidence to launch the second series this year, the second edition, and this is the first session for the year. With the COVID-19 pandemic at its peak and the extended lockdowns in Nepal, we have all been confined to our homes, and face-to-face classroom teaching has been stalled for quite a few months now. And I'm sure this has triggered stress and anxiety, not just among our students, but also among teachers. So the first session for the series is really apt. It's on teacher stress, well-being, and stress management. We've got two brilliant speakers with us today. Marie Delaney is an educational consultant and educational psychotherapist. She was also an English teacher earlier, is a teacher, trainer as well, an NLP master practitioner, and also an author. She's now based in Cork and works internationally, offering training, consultancy, and individual consultations. She has extensive experience of working with challenging behavior, both for staff and pupils. Our second speaker for the day is Sumnima Dewan. She's a well-being coach. With degrees from University of London, Harvard, and Cornell, she has been providing tailor-made well-being classes to working professionals under 50. She's also a key trainer of personal development under leadership courses provided by the White Lotus Center, where she leads on components such as emotional intelligence and work-life balance. We are really glad to have both these speakers with us today, and I'm hoping the next hour is going to be a brilliant session for all of us. If you have any questions anytime during the presentation, please do make sure to mention your questions in the chat box, and we will take it on at the end of the session. At the end, there will be a Q&A session, so we'll pick up your questions, so do make sure to put down your questions. I will now like to hand it over to Marie.
Thank you. Yes, it's great to be here, and amazing to see so many of you are interested in this topic, which I think is obviously very important for teachers across the world. So just a few housekeeping things before we get started. So that you will get the link of this to your email tomorrow. You have the website details there, the British Council and NELTA. And also you'll get an email tomorrow with a link to your certificate if you'd like to get the certificate, and some needs analysis and evaluation, which would be great if you could find time to fill that in. If you just to make it easier, as we've got so many people as well, if you can keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking, and remember, you can use the chat box for any questions, which we will take questions at the end. We will collect them up and take them at the end. So if you have them as we're speaking, just put them in the chat box. Okay, so let's get started. In this webinar, we wanted to hope by the end of it that you'll be able to define what well-being is, or what we mean by well-being, and also identify what affects your own well-being, and particularly internal factors and external factors which play a part. And then we're going to look particularly at what might be the stressors in teaching in specifically, and that may be slightly different to general well-being issues. And at the end, also hopefully, or throughout it, to identify some practical strategies that you can use to manage your well-being in these pretty difficult times. So I'm going to hand over now to Samina, who's going to talk about well-being in general.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Samnima.
Oh, great. Thanks, Marie.
Before I begin, I'd like to start with a note of gratitude. Respected teachers from all around the country, I consider this to be a great opportunity for me to be able to have this conversation with you on a very, very important topic. I think our society, particularly South Asian societies, two, I would say, seniors play a huge role in the formation of a person's life. One is parents, and the other are teachers. I think, to be very honest, Amro society ma, particularly previous generation, Amro generation, co-parents, parenting is more of providing for someone, right? In terms of food, materials, education. Sadly, त्यसैमा मात्रै सीमित भएको जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई. If we, and at a deeper level, really trying to help that person grow, it does not happen often. Perhaps because they were not provided with that education, हाम्रो society को setting नै त्यस्तो होला कि. So in that sense, I think teachers play a fundamental role in shaping a person's life. So it is my great privilege, and I'd like to thank NELTA and the British Council for this opportunity to be able to share experiences as a coach to teachers around the country. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And on that note, I think teachers are, because they are so important, so important to help a person grow. Uहाँहरूको well-being is paramount. Now, whenever we talk about well-being, I've worked with many clients in about 10 years of my life now, and professional life. And, most of them, so they ask me, so what exactly is well-being? पहिला सुरु, it sounds fancy. It sounds a bit modern and urban and a bit hi-fi, as they say. Okay? So what is well-being? Let's simplify it. Well-being. Somebody asks you, are you well? Are you all right? Right? And let's try to go a bit deeper. What does anyone mean when they say, how are you or are you well? And what kind of answer do you want to give that person? Right? You want to say, I'm happy and I'm healthy. And no matter which socioeconomic background we come from, or whatever age group that we may be, to be able to say this truly from your heart and from your soul, and that's well-being. That's how I would say it. Let's be very simple, to be healthy and to be happy. Now, healthy and happy, those are also very tricky words once again. Kinabane, health is a vast concept because you can be extremely physically fit, but if you're mentally unwell, and I think your COVID crisis has really shown us the importance of mental health, you can't really call that overall group my healthy. Then someone will say, I'm happy, but then really, how would you define happiness? What would you say? Chocolates can make you happy for temporarily, but really, is that really happiness? So perhaps we need to question health ko meaning lai pani alikati deeper wayma and happiness meaning lai pani alikati deeper level ma. What exactly do I mean when I say healthy and happy? And try to look at the broader picture. Moving on, Marie, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So healthy and happy. Everyone wants to be at peace, wants to have good health, and wants to feel joy, so that every morning is a new day. But again, there are so many hindrances to that. It could be internal and it could be external. I'm sure तपाईहरुले सुनिरहनु भएकै कुरा हो यो, that whenever people talk about, okay, external factors say ले चाहिँ तपाईको well-being, how does it affect you? Then externally, let's be very simple, let's be very practical. Work politics. You go to your school or your workplace and work politics, it pisses you off. घरमा आउँदाखेरि सायद केही conflict भइरा होला. It could be with your spouse, it could be with your parents, it could be with your children. Now those are external because it depends on other people. Now, really, what can you do, right? And whenever we talk about well-being, I tell my clients, let's try to be very basic. What can you do to help manage your stress, to help manage your happiness? Normally, usually we get stressed and irritated with the people around us. It's people. It's a people issue, right? Most of the times. Now, you can't control everyone, so the best bet is you. Now, if there are people out here who are thinking, oh, I've heard this before, yes, you have heard this before. And I'm sorry if I may be repeating, but I promise you, I'll try to go a bit deeper than whatever you have heard so far in the media. So internally, when we talk about internally, so what does it mean? Yes, I need to be better. Yes, I am the person who has the remote control, I am the person who needs to manage everything. I know all this, but I'm not being able to, is what I hear from my clients, right? That's what they tell me, Siddhe. And I appreciate that because I've gone through that. You know everything, you've read about it, you've heard about it, but okay, what do I do? The best part is at least you know that it depends on you. If you are fine, everyone is fine. If you are smiling, you attract a smiling person. If you are angry, you say something really annoying to maybe your spouse, he or she is going to reply back the same way. And then the negative energy goes on and on. So I think what is established is akhirma gaera you are your best bet. Moving on, Marie, the next slide, please. Thank you. So basically, I think we are in a country that, that is very well placed to practice this. Buddha janminu bhayeko थियो यहाँ, हैन? Now, please bear in mind, I'm not going to go on and on about some, Osho and yoga stuff. That is not what this is going to be about. Because normally spiritual health, whenever people look at this, they're already in their mind, okay, now she's going to tell me to meditate. Now she's going to tell me to do this and that. No, I'm not going to tell you to do, because meditation is a technique. Let me just quickly add, it does not bring you enlightenment. Just that does not bring you enlightenment. Kinabane, let's look around us, family money. It's like, those kind of people, morning walks, but they never lose weight. Yeah, it's exactly like that. Just because you meditate a lot does not mean you're going to be enlightened. I'm sorry, I'm a bit blunt, so I hope this is okay. But when it comes to health, I don't like to mince my words. So, well-being, like, akhirma gaera, okay, so if internally you are your best person to manage your well-being, definitely, what is that? It means mentally you need to be strong. Yes, that's there. But what does mentally strong mean? Does it mean avoiding from your issues? A lot of the time, I think in South Asian societies, and I've experienced that, and I do that once in a blue moon, it just comes out, is you say, bhayalse ni. What do you mean by that? Bhayalse ni is a way of avoiding and running away from problems and running away from conflicts in relationships, running away from issues at the workplace. Bhayalse este ho. No. But then to make an effort requires a lot of coming out of your comfort zone, right? And you really need to grow internally. Most of the time, people think, what's the point? What's the point if I do? Nothing's going to change. Well, my question is, how would you know that? Really? How would you know that? You saw it from others, but did you try it yourself? Is also a question that I ask myself and I encourage others to ask. So when I talk about spiritual health, and I really mean, what I mean is, let's try to be aware. Okay, today I'm going to go to my workplace and I'll probably have a confrontation with a colleague that I don't like. How am I going to act? So it's going to take a lot of work inward, and anyone can do this if you take time. And here I would like to use the word self-reflection. And what I have found among clients is that, and myself, is in the entire day, maybe, instead of watching a TV series or instead of watching Facebook or playing with Facebook, and, watching YouTube videos, maybe if we just, sit down and 5 minutes, we ask ourselves, what did I do stupid today? Where did मेरो ego बढी भयो होला? अथवा was I nice to my spouse? Maybe I could have acted better. Should I have been a little bit more patient with my child? Maybe those questions, shayad हामीले अलिकति 5-10 minute reflect गर्यौं भने, shayad maybe, you know, we could, instead of just, maybe that could make a whole world of a difference. Shayad यसरी हामीले सोच्यौं भने चाहिँ हाम्रो यो awakening process faster हुन्थ्यो कि. So when I talk about well-being, what I'm really saying is, let's try to be aware of what are you doing as an individual that is affecting your health and your happiness. That's where I'm coming at. Now, easier said than done, I know. Meditation can contribute, it can kind of calm your mind, but there are other factors that people rarely talk about which can help you to enhance your spiritual health. And I'm going to go and touch upon those very practical factors in the coming slides. Marie, the next slide, please. So I call them the Fantastic Four. And if you look at it, it's the things that you do every day. You know, the importance of these things in your life. 1 is food. 2 is exercise. 3, can you guess? It's sleeping. And 4, and this you rarely talk about anywhere in the world, I think, that if you have a spouse, or when I say a partner, I'm assuming not everybody's married, or a loved one, you know, they are key to your happiness. And I'd like to talk about it further. The next slide, please. Food, ma'am. I know that almost all of us have heard this, sometimes too much. You know, I have clients who tell me, "Mala food manage going to stress unsa." So it's quite funny, you know. Mala food man, and particularly, of course, our society, there are women, and thankfully sometimes it's some men as well, and they find it very stressful to manage food, because they are like, you know what they tell me? They tell me, I already have 100 dozen obligations. I'm in the kitchen literally 5 hours a day. I really can't make too much effort than that. I get tired, and I understand that. So that's why I wanted to share this plate with you. Nepali food is fantastic and diverse. We don't need to do much. We just need to make 1 or 2 changes, right? So what do we have normally? Normally, hamro rice huncha, ani dal huncha, veggies huncha. If you're vegetarian, you might have paneer, tofu. If you're not vegetarian, we have meat, chicken, red meat huncha. All you need to do to start is just make sure that the vegetable portion is colorful hunu paryo. Yo chai yaad gardinu hola. Please remember this. We have green. Normally, what do we have? Saag, simi. Then we have yellow, the famous cauliflower that we have. It's in every tarkari, right? And then normally, hamro diet ma miss hune bhaneko chai carrots. We will eat it like a salad, but we normally don't consume it as, okay, mero diet ma yo khanai parcha bhanera. त्यति मात्रै change ल्याइदिनु भयो भने पनि you are going to see the difference, I guarantee you. Red meat, 7 days huncha haptama, 2 choti मात्रै खाइदिनु होला. And at other times, try to go high on the white meat. And of course, lots of water and lots of fruits. We have this in our diet on an everyday basis. We just need to make sure and make small effort that, okay, I'm going to brighten my life with a little bit more vegetables. You won't believe it that even with these little changes, you will actually start feeling lighter. You will have more energy. If you are trying to lose weight, your stomach will also immediately and consistently flatten. Bistarai flatten huncha if you start eating a lot more vegetables and carrots. That's the basic that I can share with you when it comes to food. Ani, please make sure, yad garnus, actually please bear in mind that whenever you eat like this, your irritation level will go down, your concentration level will go up, ani cravings, sweet or spicy cravings pani kam hudai jancha, which means you will stop eating junk food, at least you will minimize it. You are going to see drastic changes even with the little changes that we make in our daily diet, and it's only going to take about 5 minutes of your time to put your mind into it. Coming to the next slide. That was fantastic number 1, eh? Now we're at fantastic number 2. Our history, if you see, and science proves that our ancestors, they walked 10 kilometers per day, which means treadmill ma that's about 3 to 3.5 hours. We are actually made to move. Eh? We are actually made to move. Certain age, certain medical condition, it can be a bit difficult, but that does not mean it's impossible. I have a client who is in her late 50s, and she उहाँले 10 minute पनि stretching गर्नु पनि उहाँको her legs and her shoulders, they used to tremble. But with small changes in her food, which I mentioned agadiko slide ma, and small walks, small distances, bistari 10 minute, 15 minute garday, now she can actually run on the treadmill for about 45 minutes, and her trembling and all that is gone. And that was not because she went to a doctor. She just invested a little bit of time in exercise and food. And I guarantee you, it's my guarantee, you can hold me to my word actually, that a little bit of exercise, improvement in your exercise day by day, really helps you go a long way. We are really made to move. At the time, there are clients who tell me, I used to run half an hour. Now I increase 40 minutes. I felt a slight pain in my stomach, and I wasn't able to take it. Garo boy, I was sick. I was afraid that I might get sick. On mero boli meetings, I can't afford to get sick, so I dropped it. The point is not to drop it. The point is to say, okay, and that's where well-being comes, awareness comes. That's you sit down and you tell yourself, okay, mero bani chaina, 30 minutes when the basic kudne, obviously something is going to happen. Slowly, I will take my time. That's exactly what I'm going to do, and that is self-reflection, coming out of your comfort zone, which contributes to your well-being. That's what I'm trying to say. Therefore, anyone who is exercising, there are a lot of participants out here. I'm sure most of you are going for your walks. Januhuncha bhane, please try to increase. Jasle suru garnu bhako chaina, please start. Now, garden, terrace ma, try to walk around for 20 minutes, right? If you can go for a walk, please go. Aba aile ta mildaina, but terrace ma athawa garden ma. You don't have a garden, you don't have a terrace, no problem. You go up and down the stairs, slowly, but you make sure you are moving in a way that you don't move. Kati time I talk to a lot of women especially, and of course some men as well, and they say, "Mo gharko kaam garda garda I move." So, I move a lot, so I don't need to move because I move and move. That's what they tell me. And I tell them, no. That moving, no. That moving is chores. There needs to be a separate kind of moving where you are focused. Okay, I am exercising, I'm inhaling, exhaling. I can feel my stomach when I'm sweating. A concentrated movement is necessary. And I guarantee you will feel the changes the moment you start. Give yourself 2 weeks and you are going to see the changes. Moving on to Fantastic 3. There you go. Now, this one is quite tricky, isn't it? Like I tell my clients, right? Please go to bed on time, and I love it when they answer. How will I go to bed on time? I can't sleep. You're telling me to sleep. I close my eyes. I can't sleep. Sutnai sakdaina ta, why are you telling me that I need to go to bed? So it happens. This happens. See, and we need to practically tackle this. This is called trying to really self-reflect, right? So it could be that those of you who are not able to sleep for 8 hours or 9 hours, it could be because you are stressed, and it could very well be that you are not getting the right nutrition. You are eating too much of carbohydrates and sugar, which is making you bloat up and angry and irritated, and that affects your sleep. You're not exercising, so you're not sweating. If you're not sweating, your body is mentally tired but not physically tired. And when the two don't talk to each other, you can't sleep. So could it be that because you're not taking care of yourself, you're not being able to sleep, right? And sleep is so important, especially if there are some of you who want to lose weight. If you don't sleep for 8 hours or 9 hours, actually, you are not going to lose weight. No matter how much you deprive yourself of calories, it's not going to work. So food, exercise, sleep, they go together. कतिचोटि के भएको छ भने तपाईले आफ्नो food and exercise, if you manage, right? If you manage, then your sleep comes to you because your body le साथ दिइरहेछ तपाईलाई. Okay, you're taking care of yourself. Your hormones are flowing. So tuck time, everything starts happening. And therefore, food and exercise contribute to having a good sleep. I understand that sleep can be a slightly debatable topic because research like given, so in a modern life, anyone who has a modern life, you have a job, you have a family, you are working 9 to 6, 8 to 9 hours is actually mandatory. 8 to 9, if you can manage. If you can manage, bless you, but at least 8 hours is mandatory. A lot of the time, when you are very much into spirituality and you are very much following a guru's life, then they talk about 3 to 4 hours of sleep. But for your body to be okay with the 3 to 4 hours of sleep, you need to have exactly their lifestyle. You are disattached. You don't have to run 9 to 5, for a job. You don't have other obligations. Disattachment. I'm assuming most of you don't have that life, right? So in that case, we need to go with the general science that tells you that 8 to 9 hours are mandatory. And believe me, respected teachers, that this data has been proven after generations and decades of research by top level scientists. So there must be something, eh? So please try to care for yourself, particularly food and nutrition, and then you will see that sleep will come to you. And lastly, the fantastic fourth, the last one, thank you. This one, around the world, we never talk about this. It's very strange, isn't it? Because I find it so strange not to talk about, because let's say, Biana, you have kids with your spouse. You really think you're going to concentrate throughout the day? It does not happen unless you are completely disattached, because back of the mind, it's always going to be there and you need to go home and confront it. If you're going to avoid it, bad for you. It's going to come out later. It's funny, whenever I talk with a couple, they always tell me, it's not like I'm angry at him for this one reason. I think about all the other reasons that I'm angry with him for, and it comes out during that time. And it's hilarious, right? It's so funny. And this happens. So if you know it happens, why aren't you doing something about it? And then the perfect Nepali answer comes. Bhayalcha ni yastै ho. No. Because yastै ho, because you let it be. If yastै नै hunthyo, then ideal भन्ने exist नै हुँदैन थियो. Buddha would never have been born. Right? So what I'm saying is we're not perfect, but we can aspire for it, because believe me, ladies and gentlemen, that I have met in my life the opportunity to meet very few people who have actually achieved something of perfection when it comes to relationships. And when I met them, I felt blessed, because I thought it exists. And it takes work, and my God, it takes work. But once you work on it, it changes your life, and that is something worth fighting for, And I believe it. And I'm so sorry my video is not working, but I hope you hear it in my voice, the passion and the truth and the belief that I have met these people and I've been inspired by these people, that life is worth it, and your partner is worth it, especially if you've chosen it, and if you've not chosen it, then hello, make the best of it, eh? And when I talk about intimacy, everyone needs intimacy. Let's not be shy about this word. We are here because we were procreated from our parents. So everyone needs intimacy. And I think it's quite sad that, I think it's a very South Asian setting, but hey, we can do better, is that we don't tend to spend time with our partners. Often I see maybe the wife in the kitchen and the husband watching TV, and that's therapeutic for them because they're just tired of talking to each other. And that affects your well-being. You slowly create a void, and then it's done. And then you tell the generation coming after you, you tell your children, esteo, after 40 years or 50 years of marriage. Really, I think we can do better than that as adults, yeah? I think children need to see parents talking, arguing gracefully, so that they have the courage to find someone, to settle down with someone, and to enjoy life with someone, So it actually goes really deep, I think. And I'm so sorry, I'm not a relationship counselor, far from it, but I try to apply this in the important relationships of my life. And believe me, it has made me a different person than how I used to be. It has brought a lot of positiveness and joy in my life, and I think that's worth it. आफ्नो spouse-सँग time spend गर्ने अलिकति 10-15 minutes बाट पनि try गर्नुस्. त्यसपछि आफ्नो family लाई पनि time दिनु पर्यो. And please start thinking about intimacy intimacy, because this is not something to shy about. It contributes directly to your well-being. I have seen a husband and wife or partners who are thriving with each other, and both of them successful because both of them contributed to each other. It works. It matters. And I've met people who have achieved this and who continue and try to achieve this. And believe me, out of 100 people if I've met, only one has achieved it, and that one makes the difference. That one, that person has a life that maybe 5 people would never even imagine. So on that note, on the next slide, please. So what I'm saying is these fantastic 4, which is food, exercise, sleep, and quality time with your better half, your partner or a loved one, will contribute to your well-being of self-reflection, of making you grow as a human being, right? And because I don't have much, and I'd like to wrap up, here's my small a gift to you. Normally, please bear in mind, this is only a brief walkthrough. Well-being is something that nobody can teach you in 1 hour of PowerPoint presentation. Nobody can drag you. It takes months and years. But what I can do is share my experience and our experience, and hope that, it makes even a teeny bit difference, and that's where you can start from. So let's get started. Please try to eat, no, Marie, let's go back. Yeah, thanks. Please try to eat 3 complete meals. If any of you are trying intermittent fasting, please make sure you consult your nutritionist before you do that. Intermittent fasting has a deeper meaning than just losing weight. It can be dangerous. So I beg you to please talk to a doctor or a nutritionist before you start that. Otherwise, please have 3 complete meals. Hamra Nepali meals are perfect. Just make sure you have vibrant vegetables, fruits, lots of water. Please try to exercise at least 30 minutes a day. If you can't manage 30 minutes at once, please improvise. 20 minutes garnos, remaining 10 minutes pachi garnos. But try to get as much as you can. Try to do something different in exercise. And please make time for love, because it's important. And anyone who does not talk about it when it comes to well-being, I don't think you should believe that person, eh? It doesn't work that way. Then, the most important aspect, self-reflect. Please try to sit down quietly. If you don't have quiet time, then please go to your car. Please find a way, please go and please walk in the garden, or please go to your car, or just go out of the gate and find the space and time to just think about it for 10 minutes. And eventually when you go to bed, please try to be thankful. If you had 10 things going wrong and 1 thing went right, just be happy for that 1 thing, I guess, because it really works. And slowly try to work on your sleep. And when you wake up every morning, please smile. Please smile. Everybody has their baggage in life, but please try to be positive and just tell yourself that I'm going to have a great day, and I'm going to have a great day every day. Believe me, it works. If otherwise, no coach would be saying this around the world. It really works, that mindset. And lastly, I'd like to end on a parting note. As a coach, I have my coach as well, and this is also an ode to him, because as coaches, and as teachers, we all know that we have to continuously grow and come out of our comfort zone to be able to teach well, to be a coach, because learning, well-being, and in well-being or learning, I would say, learning to personally grow, learning to personally care for yourself, really learning is a journey. And in your 20s, it might be different. In your 40s, it'll be different. In your 80s, it'll be completely different. But it's not a destination, right? And you can bring that change. You really can bring that change. Take it from me, you can. I've met people around the world that have made it happen. And there are very few, because it's difficult, but it's not impossible, So in that sense, and on that note, thank you so much for being with me in this for this 25 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samnima, and a lot of stuff to think about there. So what I'd like to now think about is applying this specifically to our job as teachers. And why is it important? Well, I would say it's really important because you can't help and look after other people if you're not looking after yourself. And particularly when you're dealing with maybe some of your more challenging or difficult students, you know, they come into school every day and they more or less do the same thing. What makes the biggest difference to all children and students is the reactions of the adults around them. And on a good day, we can react really well, and on a bad day, we are stressed and we get it wrong. So, and I wanted to just link it a little bit, mention COVID and how that might be affecting all our brains and all our thoughts. Across the world, actually, teachers across the world, because we know that trauma affects the hormones in our brains and in our bodies. And there are 4 particular hormones that I think it's useful to think about. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone. We need a certain amount of cortisol to get up in the morning, to challenge ourselves, to drive ourselves a little bit, to do some of the things that we're just talking about. But when that becomes too much, when we get flooded with it, and there's too much of it in our brain, that causes us to forget things, to not be able to think, to maybe decisions take longer, maybe we get irritated, we lose our temper easily, or crying more maybe at the moment. That's a sign that cortisol is too high in our brains. And as teachers, for ourselves and our students, we need to think what kind of things lower the cortisol to help us feel settled to learn and teach. Serotonin is often called the happy hormone. So Nima was talking about movement. We get serotonin. We need to be happy and we need to be relaxed to learn. No one learns anything when they're completely stressed out or traumatized. Our brains don't function. So we get serotonin from moving. So maybe we need to, like, sometimes particularly if we're doing remote learning, we need to stretch, we need to move, we need to help the students shake it out, do something for ourselves. But also we get it from having fun. Life has become very serious. Obviously, there's very difficult things happening, but we still need to make sure we have fun, we enjoy time with people, and our students have fun. Dopamine is our reward system. We need it. We look for reward. We crave it to keep us going. And if we don't get it from positive things, we might look for negative things. Anybody that's been eating a lot of chocolate during the lockdowns and putting on weight because you're just eating lots of sweet things, it's probably because your dopamine is going down and you increase it with your sweet stuff. And then when we get it, we want more of it. But we need dopamine. But we can also get it from, interestingly enough, we can get it from structure and systems. So if you feel like all the structure and certainty has gone out of life at the moment, how do you create some small structures and routines in your own life? And how do you create it for your students? So one of the things, if you don't know when you're going back to school or what's going to happen next week, but when you're teaching, you can say to your students, today we're going to do these 3 things, 1, 2, 3. Firstly, secondly, thirdly. You can show them as you complete each thing. And at the end, you can say, and this is what we did. And you're creating the structure, you're creating the dopamine that we need to feel rewarded. And of course, we also get it from praise. Oxytocin is a really interesting one to come back to what Nima was talking about with connection. Oxytocin is often called the cuddle hormone. We need it. We need to feel connected. We get it from touch. We get it from feeling like we belong or connected with people. We've maybe been missing it in the last year if we haven't been able to physically meet people or hug them. So how do we create it for ourselves? How do we keep connected? How do we, make the call to our friends, even though we're busy and stressed? Make the time to have some personal discussions with our students so that we all feel like we're still connected and we belong. Really important to think about what we might be missing at the moment and how we can work on it. The other thing I wanted to show you was this pressure performance curve, which comes from the world of business and Stephen Covey, but I think it's really useful for teachers to think about, because basically
Sorry, Marie. Hello, Marie. Marie, can you hear us? Your sound is breaking. Maybe you'd want to switch your video off. Maybe that will save the bandwidth. Marie, can you hear us?
If we
Apologies, everyone. It seems we are having some issues with the connection. We're still trying to get Marie back online, so please bear with us. Marie, are you there? Hello, Marie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Marie.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm not sure what was the last thing that you could hear me saying. Was I talking about the pressure performance curve?
You had just started, so probably you'll need to start it right from there.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that, the joys of technology. Okay, so on this pressure performance curve, what I want you to think about is most of us work well under a certain amount of pressure. When we're out of our comfort zone and we're feeling challenged. But over the last year, many of us have moved further than that. We're moving out into what we call the strain zone. Feels like there's too much pressure, and that's when performance starts to get worse. We can get tired. We find it hard to make decisions, and if we're not careful, it turns into burnout and overwhelmed. So it's really important for us, for you maybe might think about, what lets you know you've moved into the strain zone? How do you pull back from it? So for some of us, we maybe start to get tired, we get aches and pains, we get irritable. These are the moments we often don't notice, particularly as teachers. And these are the moments when we need to really focus on doing some of the things that Nima was talking about to keep us healthy and well. Because if we're not careful, we move into that red zone of burnout and serious health problems. Or as teachers, how often do you get sick in the holidays when you can stop? So what is stress and where does it come from? One definition of stress is the idea that it's not so much that we have a lot of things to do, it's that we feel the demands put upon us are higher than we can meet, that it's too much is being asked of us. And many people might feel like that now because of the way things have been working for a long time with online teaching. But a certain amount of teacher stress. So teacher stress tends to come from, as Nima said, some of it is from external, outside forces. Some of it is from within ourselves. So I always say it's very interesting being a teacher, because I feel like everybody has an opinion about what a good teacher is. Almost everyone thinks they could be one, because most people have been to school at some time in their lives. So there's so many external opinions in the media, even from our friends, from parents, in a way that maybe there isn't about other professions. But also, we often say time is a pressure. We feel like we've got too much to do and we can't get it all done. And often the reality is there is too much to do. So it is about focus. We do make time for things we think are important. So we do need to make time for ourselves. Obviously, there's the external pressures of exams and governments and ridiculous. In most parts of the world, the ministries for education are being quite ridiculous in what they still expect of teachers, even though there's been, you know, such a traumatic year or more than a year for most of the world. So there's this feeling that too much is expected. And sometimes we have to think about it, looking at the reality and doing the best we can. And workloads obviously can be it, but in turn, so a lot of that stuff, as Samnima said, we can't actually control. So one way of managing ourselves and our own well-being is to think about, where am I putting my attention? What am I focusing on? And that tip that I'm sure many of you heard is really probably the most important. Which of the things are within your control at the moment and which are not? So what's in your control is yourself, the only person you can manage. And I hate to tell all teachers, I think we're a bit control freaks, but the only person you can control is yourself. And some things are within your control: how you plan your lessons, how you speak to your students, where you choose to take your time for yourself, when you choose to say no to things. Teachers are very bad sometimes at saying no to things, and they end up with too many things to do, and then they get stressed. But also another way of looking at it is, what energizes you, or who energizes you, and who drains you. You know, there are some people, you talk to them about work or your job or students, and after talking to them, you feel like throwing yourself in the river because you feel so depressed. And there's other people you'll talk to and you can have fun, have a laugh, and you have good ideas and you feel energized. So, you know, manage your own energy. You know, avoid those people that drain you if you can. Seek out the people that energize you, and also think about what energizes you. For most teachers, for example, interactions with students tends to be energizing. Paperwork tends to be draining. If you're feeling tired and drained at the end of a week, look back on your week and think, what have I been doing? Who have I been interacting with? Do I need to make sure I deliberately focus on energizing things and people? Internally as well, there's something called, from transactional analysis, there's something called drivers. And I think there's three that, in my experience of working with teachers across the world, we all tend to have. This desire to be perfect, to get it right, to be strong, to not be weak, not be vulnerable, and always try harder. And of course, these things can be really important and they can make us good at our job. But when we, under stress, under strain, we often do them to the extreme and they're not helpful. Because, for example, no one's perfect. We're all human beings. And we teach our students it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. So, you know, if you've had a bad day and you've got the technology wrong because you're still doing online learning, or one student didn't attend, or a parent was annoyed at you, remember, we all learn from mistakes. None of us are perfect. What could you learn from these opportunities? And being strong just means, as I said, that very often teachers keep going. They don't ask for help. They think, if I ask for help, you'll think I'm a bad teacher. They don't offer help because they think you might think I'm criticizing you. But then come the holidays, you get sick because your body has not been able to cope, has been going on this. Or try harder. Education systems around the world seem to have this thing that we find something that doesn't work and we keep doing it because it should. And for example, you know, here in the UK, we think students that misbehave should be excluded or suspended. And there are some students for whom that does not work at all. And we know it doesn't work, but we still do it because it should. So instead of these drivers, maybe another way to think about all of our work is let's take risks, make mistakes, you learn from them. You're human, be compassionate and flexible. To yourself, be kind to yourself. It's okay to offer and accept help. And maybe instead of try harder, just try something different, even something crazy. That's sometimes the answer. So, and again, when we're stressed or particularly at the moment, we need some simple techniques that maybe are going to just help us stop, take a breath, reflect. And this is a nice technique that a lot of people find very useful, the stop technique. So literally it's stop, take a breath. I mean, you might like to do it now if you've been listening to us for quite a long time. Just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Observe what's happening. Acknowledge your feelings around it. Sorry, you can't see that on the slide. That's to say, acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to have the feelings. And if we don't try and avoid them, but try and notice them and just say it's okay to have that feeling and proceed with something helpful. Now, your part of the world, people know a lot more about meditation generally than the Western world. In the Western world, mindfulness has become very popular. But I think it can be useful to remind ourselves of being in the present. How do we ground ourselves back to the moment? Because anxiety and stress is often about being worried about the future, about something that hasn't happened. So take time. Some of you might know the technique rescue breathing. And actually, let's just try it now. I'm aware that I'm rushing a little bit because of time. So let's just take a moment, and I'd like everyone to breathe in through your nose for the count of 7. And breathe out through your mouth for a long breath of 11. And just try that again a couple of times on your own and notice how your body feels. And these are the kind of things that can bring us into the moment, because often as teachers, we spend a lot of time in our heads. And also stop, savor the moments, notice small successes. We're very problem focused in education. We're often we notice the class that went wrong, the student that didn't get it, the colleague. Whereas we need to stop and take a moment and maybe even write down some of the successes of the day. So here are some what are called mini habits. The other thing about changing your habits or changing your ability to manage stress is that we sometimes make things too big. You know, I'm going to lose 3 stone. I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to never eat chocolate again. And we make things so big, we don't actually start them. So mini habits are small things we can do that just put us on the way to helping. So you can read them yourself. I'll just go through them. I've mentioned, take a 1 minute, pause, a few deep breaths, list, as I said, what you can and can't control, focus on that, focus on what's working, maybe text a friend if you've got a minute, or if you've got a minute for a quick chat, somebody that makes you feel good, that energize you, watch a funny video instead of getting stuck. Social media doesn't have to be bad if we can manage it. I'm just going to take a minute and watch something that'll make me laugh. Maybe just crossing off things as you do them. As teachers, we tend to have lists of things to do, and I would say we never get them done. So one of them is accepting you will never get your to-do list done, but you can prioritize things, or just ticking things off. Sleep, exercise, we talked about. Positive self-talk. One of the tips I got was talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. Because we tend to beat ourselves up. This is the perfectionist thing again. We can, oh God, maybe I can't manage this technology now, or teaching's changed, or the kids have changed. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Well, you'd probably never say that to your best friend, or maybe I hope you wouldn't. You'd probably say something positive and affirming. You are good at your job. It's just a bad day. Look at all the kids you've helped. So talk to yourself, be kind to yourself. Or do things that physically release stress. So one of them is just shaking it out. Shake out your arms. You might want to try this now. Shake your hands, shake your arms, shake your legs, shake your head, shake it out. Another easy one is tense your muscles and then relax them. Breathing, square breathing is breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, hold that for 4. Or balloon breathing, which is also a great one to do with the students. Breathe in through your nose, and then breathe out as if you're blowing up a balloon and hold the balloon. I'm going to attempt to show my face here to show you. So breathe in and then as if you were blowing up a balloon. Shoulder roll breathing, you might want to try these as I do them. Breathe in as you roll your shoulders back, breathe out as you roll them forward. An inner smile visualization is a really nice one. Just imagine you've got a smile inside your tummy and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as it smiles. Now, the good thing about understanding and having techniques and habits is you can teach these to your students, but you can't teach anything to anybody that you haven't put into practice yourself. So it is walk the talk. The other thing I would say is, again, we're very focused on what we do wrong sometimes, the negatives. So know your strengths and play to them. So during the last year or so, during all these difficult times, which of these strengths have, just take a moment and look at these, and which of these strengths have you used and do you use a lot? Kindness, empathy, humor, listening, connecting, flexibility, building esteem, explaining things. I put these down because they're often strengths that teachers have, and just be aware that you do have them and you can use them, and focusing on that and being aware of them and using them more and doing more of what's working rather than worry about what's not working. Okay, I'm going to move on because I'm aware of the time. You will be getting the slides, but I've included here some grounding activities that you can do with your students, and that bring them into their bodies and sort of manage all those sort of hormones and stress, and some of them are physical because sometimes we need something physical. Okay, I've rushed to the last bit just in case we have a couple of questions, but just there are our contact details. My websites, my companies are the Learning Harbour and Trauma Responsive Education. Nima has also shared her email there. And I know many of you obviously know the British Council Teaching English website, where there are articles and videos where myself and others have written about this topic in some detail. So I'm just going to stop there and just check if we have any questions for the last few minutes.
Thanks, Marie. Is that the end? Can we now move on to the Q&A section?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can stop the slide share so that we can have the speakers on the screen if possible. Okay, thank you so much, Simnima and Marie. I think that was a great presentation. A lot of, Simnima, like you said, a lot of things that we have heard before, but it's a great reflection. It's great to hear them again and, you know, have a reflection of whether we've actually been following it. It's a great reminder. And some of the tips that Marie, you gave around, especially around the teachers and, you know, the breathing exercise, again, great to be able to hear that again and hear it from you. Right, so I would request, there are a couple of questions in the chat box, but I would request that the audience, you can put in more questions. I've taken down a few. We did ask a couple of questions to our staff members as well, so maybe I'll start off with that while other questions keep coming in. For the audience members, can I please ask you all to keep your videos off so that we don't lose the bandwidth? We just need the speakers on video. Thank you so much. Right, so I'll start off with the questions that we've picked up from our staff members. The first question, probably Sumnima could go ahead with this. We've got someone saying, I know a lot of people who tend to eat more when they are stressed, and I'm also one of them. And unfortunately, this leads to a lot of other issues that follow, often leading to more stress. What advice would you give such people?
Depends on what are you eating. Are you eating chocolates? Are you eting titora and spices? What are you eating? If you're, it depends, because if you have a sugar craving,
you make junk food.
junk food,
instant pleasure.
How about this? How about you maybe you eat, normally if you eat 5 packets of chips, how about you start with maybe 2 packets and remaining you have apple and bananas? If you manage to do this, email me, I can help you, but you need to start with this.
Right.
Start with that. Honestly, I'm giving you a very practical tip. I can go on and on and on and on. It's not going to work. If you love junk food, enjoy your junk food. Maybe if you have 5 packets of chips, you bring it down to 2 and you tell yourself, okay, fine, remaining 3 I'll eat tomorrow. Right now I'll eat apple and bananas. Trust me, it's going to work.
That I'm sure the person who's listening to this, the answer would really be able to follow that. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The next question, again, this is from a staff member that we had collected earlier. How do I know that I'm stressed? Marie?
Sorry, who's it for? Okay. Yeah.
I think everybody has different things that let them know it's stress. It's about becoming aware of, if I go back to the pressure curve, what lets you know you've started to slip into it. But with a lot of people, it is things like you start to be more irritable, decisions take longer to make, work that you could do really easily starts to become longer. Or with some people, it's physical. They start to get aches and pains. They start to maybe have stomach problems. You're not interacting with people as well as you do. So I think these are typical symptoms, but I think what the question is to try to start to notice yourself when what happens to you personally and what those signs are that you've tipped into the strain zone, not the out of the stretch zone. And even an awareness, asking yourself the question, often gives you some answers. And I just wanted to say, in answer to that last question as well, acknowledging the feelings you're having when you're overeating, or recognizing, taking a moment, stopping, taking a breath and thinking, how do I feel? And what could I do differently with this feeling can sometimes be helpful.
Right, thank you. Let's move on to questions from the audience now. So one of the questions is related to socializations in the visual world. What may be the concrete definition of socialization in the visual world today, and how is this related to stress?
What do you mean by visual world?
Probably they mean the internet at the moment. Let's take it as that. I know it's a bit unclear. Let's kind of take it as the online world that many of us are having to, depend on.
So sorry, could you repeat the question again, Vaishali-ji?
Sure. So what may be the concrete definition of socialization when we talk about the online world currently, and how is this related to stress?
I think the definition would vary among people, but personally, I would call it as, I think what social media has, apart from the advantages, I think what social media has really done is really shown us that human beings can be really narcissistic, and we can look for validation and feel good factor. We seek for temporary pleasure and we seek for validation. I'm only talking about the cons here. So in that sense, I would define it as something dangerous if you are not able to manage yourself, and it directly contributes to your well-being and stress. Because if you are a person who, to be honest, is going to post a post or a photograph, and then immediately every 2-3 minutes, if your system is making you check, did I get any compliments? Who's saying what? Who's saying what? Who's saying what? It contributes to your stress. Are you seeking validation? Why is it necessary for you? And perhaps that is where, Marie rightly put it, and I was also talking about self-reflection, is think about it. Think about it. Why are you doing this? Why do you feel the necessity to post so many things, And the amount of time you're spending. Would you rather spend more time on Facebook than spend time talking to your friend or your spouse? If that's the case, then what's going on, I think I would link this to self-reflection. Yeah.
Right. Marie, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I think as adults, we have to be careful as well that young people often gaming, internet, social media is their way of connecting. And as Samima said, it depends what you're using it for, because research shows it can increase the oxytocin, that idea of belonging and connecting. My nephew's always playing during the lockdowns, always playing games with other friends. And he's always telling me, this is connecting, Mari, this is socializing, we are able to socialize. So, you know, that's different to, as you said, how often you're on it, what you're using it for, and whether you're actually getting out into the fresh air also and connecting with people physically or your own health. But I think we have to be be careful not to be too judgmental of young people and look at what they're using it for.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. So institutions tell us to go online to teach students, but we find that only a few of them are present there because of various reasons. They don't have access. And as teachers, we get really irritated and tend to vent out that to our students involuntarily. What is your advice on this?
Well, I think they probably have nearly answered their own question there. It comes back to that. You have to acknowledge that some things are not in your control. And I do think as teachers, we like to be in control. We think we can control everything. And then the external factor is maybe the management or the institution we work for act as if it's our fault sometimes. So we have to be fairly strong and look at, I can only be good enough. I can only manage it as best I can. Maybe I can find another way of connecting with the student. Maybe we can sometimes have text, or we can sometimes use WhatsApp just to have that bit of connection, or we can do it offline somehow. But there's only so much you can do. And I think we have to, you know, that's what I meant about be kind to yourself and acknowledge that good enough is good enough and you cannot control everything. You know, my Wi-Fi went in the middle of this seminar. What could I do about that other than try to get it back and hope people would be kind and patient? So we need to catch ourselves in those moments and talk it through for ourselves so that we are not venting at the students.
Right. I think the next question is kind of related to that as well. So if a teacher is in a situation where they have vented out their anger to their students, one of the audience listeners have asked, how do we then reconnect with the students? What advice would you give on that?
I think it's a really good question because it comes back to the fact that we're human beings. So I think you need to be authentic. You need to say, I'm sorry, I lost my temper, or I was very stressed, and it actually, most of that was nothing to do with you. And I would say to them, so how can we go forward? Can we go forward, and can we make it better? If they've lost their temper as well, you can maybe say, both of us seem to get too stressed there, so how can we go forward? Can we do this better another way? Because students will accept that you're a human being if you can actually be honest with them. And sometimes we're frightened of doing that. And we're showing them as well that how to repair relationships, how to reconnect, because I'm sure they lose their temper sometimes. So it's a really good question, but I think the key to it is honesty.
Right. Okay. So maybe the next question, you could take this. Are there any warning signs of stress?
Warning signs. Oh wow, that would be so different among individuals, don't you think so, Marie? It's like for my warning would be completely different than yours. So again, I would join this to Azulai Chudi, please self-reflect garnus and afulai nialnus. It's mainly about awareness, because for me, a warning sign if I'm stressed is suddenly I'll start trying to multitask too much. That's what I end up doing. You know, suddenly I'm like, oh, I've got this to do. Suddenly I'm not thinking, I'm rushing. And the moment I'm rushing, you know, I think there's a blood pressure rise. I can feel it inside. I'm feeling a bit warm. And that's my warning saying, okay, now you're going overboard, right? So I think it depends upon individuals. That's why, you know, that's why it's so important to have a friend or somebody who tells you the truth. And that's where I want to join in. I want to join the point I made about your partner or a loved one is that you need to ask them, what am I doing wrong? Because I think your partner knows best, because they get the most irritated of you, right? To be honest. I mean, recently I was talking to a couple, and then the wife said, it's easy. I just ask him what makes him mad. And he tells me, you know, you start doing this. That means it's a warning sign. So ask people who are going to be frank to you, who will tell you this is where you become painful. Find people like that. 2, which will help you find your own warnings, you know, if you can't find it yourself. I do that. I mean, I ask my best friend, I ask my mentor, I ask my parents, brother. And secondly, after they tell you, please don't get stressed. Okay, so after they tell you, you just think about it and say, okay, I'm actually irritated with you, but I'll try not to be stressed. I'll think about what you said, and then things will follow. Self-reflection, and ask someone whom you really trust.
Right. And I'm just conscious of the time. I think we have time for only 3 questions. The next one I'm going to ask is kind of related to this. Like Sumima said, we have different warning signs. We've just got a question from one of the teacher who says, when she's stressed, she really gets anxious. So she's actually said "Attinchu" in Nepali, Sumnima. So I know some people who really get these anxiety attacks as well. So at that moment of time, what would be the suggestion? What would you advise?
Wow. I can relate to that, and it's very difficult because मैले हजुरलाई अहिले भने पनि I don't know whether you would do it, because at that time somehow we don't remember what our teachers tell, our coaches tell us, right? Okay, I'll tell you what I do. I'll tell you what other people do, and I hope that this works for you. To be very honest, right? What I do is I just take deep breaths. It actually works. We've read about this, I know, but म गर्छु भनेर चाहिँ you'll have to push yourself, हजुर. Hey, you'll have to push yourself, because what I do is, okay, I really need to inhale, exhale, you know, I really need to do that, and I do it. For me, actually, I need to do it about 10 times. For some people, it's fine with 3. I need to do it when 10 गर्नुपर्छ, but I do it, and then I feel a little bit better. So I really hope, Hazur, that you'll have the strength that when this happens next time, that you will do it. That's the best, most practical advice I can give you.
Right. Hopefully that's going to help the teacher who sent us the question. The second last question for you, Marie, because this is related to teachers. This particular teacher teaches primary students. So her question is, could you share some methods to deal with stress during online classes, particularly when you're teaching primary children?
Yeah, so I think people will get the slides if they want them. So on the slide that I talked about grounding activities, they're really useful for all students, but they're all activities you can do online. What you really need to do is what Sameen was just talking about. You need to get them to get into their bodies, and you need to do it quite regularly, have brain breaks. So one of them, for example, is just stomps, getting them standing up, stomping their feet and blowing away the stress. Or like I said before, another one is just getting them to shake it out of your arms, shake it out of your legs, shake it out of your head. Another thing you can do is the balloon breathing that I mentioned. Breathe into your nose, make a big balloon, blow it out. There's another one that's on the slide, which is like, be like a tree, stand tall, stretch up to the sky and feel the sunshine. There's a power hug, actually, to do with anxiety, that was mentioned as well for students and adults. The power hug is when you touch your right hand to your left shoulder, your left hand to your right shoulder. You tap yourself twice and you squeeze twice and you say something positive like, I'm okay, I've got this. And these kind of, or it's very simple for primary students, get them to just trace around their fingers, and as they trace around their fingers, to breathe in and breathe out, so that they're doing it very slowly, because often younger children, they need something physical to do. They can't just sit and breathe. Or even adolescents, if you teach adolescents, you need to give them something to do. So these are all like this kind of physical grounding, and doing them at regular intervals, not just when you think, plan them, put it into your planning. But when people get the slides, they're all on one of the slides called grounding.
Okay, thank you. And I think the final question, there were quite a few of them related to there's quite similar questions around that. So it's about, the whole crux of a couple of questions were asking whether stress at work is always a negative thing. Is it always, can it ever be productive, or is it always negative?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I said about cortisol. We need a certain amount of cortisol. We need a certain amount of stress to get up in the morning, to push ourselves to meet our deadlines. But there's an American called Kelly McGonigal who has a TED talk on or YouTube, who talks about make stress your friend. Her research would show that it's not the stress itself that causes us the illnesses, it's our attitude to the stress. So because we think stress is bad, because we think we're stressed, oh my God, this is terrible, that makes it all worse. So she talks a lot about how even in your brain, you do need a certain amount. There's an example, for example, of a tightrope walker walking across the Grand Canyon, and he talks about with no net, halfway across, his legs start to wobble, and his body, because he's getting shaky wobbliness in his legs, which is a stress reaction. And the way you overcome it is you think that's good, that's my body telling me that I'm up for this, that I'm ready for the challenge, that that I'm halfway across, and it's a good thing to know that I'm still doing it. And by thinking like that, he can continue. Whereas if he thought, oh my God, I'm getting stressed, my legs are getting, I can't do this, he'd probably fall off. So if people are interested, that lady is called Kelly McGonigal, and it's Make Stress Your Friend. But a certain amount of it we do need, and how we think about it will also affect us. I don't know if Sunima might have another idea.
Yes, any final thoughts on that, Sunima, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think Murray said it all comes to the mind, but allow me to kind of simplify a bit. Work stress is really how you look at it. For example, there are some people just stressed हुनुभयो तर हजुरको concentration, your concentration is intact. You're stressed, but there are people who can concentrate a lot more when they're stressed and they get the work done because suddenly they need to be so focused, they become kind of like emotionless, I need to get this done. So in that stress, you can also work well. But if you are stressing and suddenly you are having mood swings, mood swings, emotionally you are being volatile, you're feeling angry or you feel too sentimental, getting sensitive, and it's affecting your work, you're not being able to focus, then work stress is bad. So it really depends on you, really. It really depends on you.
Okay. Thank you so much. There were a couple of more questions, but I think we have time only for this much. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. We had over 300 participants at one point coming in and on for the session. Thank you so much, Marie and Sunima. I think that was a wonderful presentation. To all the audience members, we will be sending a recording of the session tomorrow in your email. We will also be sending a feedback sheet. We would be really grateful if you can send us your feedback as well. And this is the whole webinar series is not entire, it's not a one go for everything. You can join different sessions at different times. I did see a question there. So yes, feel free to join another session, register yourself and join it. It's not a whole course that you have to go through. We hope to see all of you again in the next session in July. So thank you so much again, everyone. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Sunmia. Everyone stay safe. Hope you have a nice rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Vaishali ji, Marine and Sunmia. Wonderful presentations. Bye-bye.
Thank you.